The millionaire who terrorized the company was silenced by the new secretary, and the reason is unbelievable. Before we start, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Excuse me, murmured Riley, weaving a tray with 2 coffees, one for her, the other to try to impress the boss she hadn't even met yet, Maxwell Crawford, the man who, according to rumors, had the charm of Squidward and the sweetness of a lime. She passed the reception desk, trying to smile at the young woman at the counter, but her left heel slipped on the shiny floor. The tray jumped, and in her reflex to catch it, she lost her balance even more. And as if it were fate or divine punishment, right in front of her appeared a tall man, perfectly tailored suit, serious expression, walking as if even gravity bowed to him. Maxwell Crawford. The 2 coffee cups flew, tracing a perfect arc in the air before landing squarely on his chest and tie. The hot liquid spread, leaving a brown stain on a suit that probably cost more than $1,000. The murmur in the reception area stopped. Even the security guard scrolling through his phone looked up as if expecting a scene. Riley froze, breathing quickly, her eyes moving from the stain on his suit to his face. Maxwell lowered his gaze to his chest and then slowly looked back at her. The silence between them felt heavier than the soaked fabric. Then, in a moment that could only be Kaye, collective gasp swept through the lobby. Maxwell frowned, his jaw tense. Didn't seem like a man used to hearing sarcasm, much less accepting it. "You," he began, his voice low, firm, and filled with irritation. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Riley swallowed hard. "I spilled coffee on your suit, but technically I increased its value. Premium coffee, you know." She forced a nervous smile. Maxwell blinked slowly, as if trying to decide if she was a bold employee or someone completely out of her mind. "This is a custom-made." The bright side. "Now you're nicely scented." A ripple of shock moved through the employees. Someone in the back. The smell of coffee mixed with his expensive cologne was almost an olfactory declaration of war. "Your name?" he ordered. "Riley. Riley Parker. Your new secretary." He raised his eyebrows, and for a brief moment something almost imperceptible, curiosity, crossed his irritated gaze. "Perfect. First day, and you're already on my list of urgent matters." Riley tried to explain. "I was just trying to be nice, bringing you coffee, and for me too, because, well, mornings," she gestured, realizing she was waving a coffee-stained hand. "Kale, stop." Maxwell took a deep breath, clearly fighting for patience. "Go to my office in 10 minutes and bring." He looked at the tray on the floor, a cloth. "Gee." When he walked away, the murmuring began again. 2 interns started whispering excitedly, and the receptionist said, with a mischievous smile, 10 minutes in and you've already made history." Riley sighed. "Yeah, welcome to the dream job, Parker." The elevator seemed to climb slower than any in engineering history. At each floor, Riley replayed the coffee splash in her head, imagining the possible consequences. Public humiliation, immediate firing, becoming a hallway legend, the girl who ruined the boss's suit. When she finally reached the 27th floor, the hallway felt like a silent courtroom. The door to Maxwell's office was open, but his figure, standing with his back to her, looking out the window, steps holding the cloth like a shield. "I am sorry about the coffee. It was an accident. I really wanted to make a good impression." He turned slowly. The stain on his suit was still there, but his look wasn't just anger. It was assessment, as if he were studying every word and gesture. "Impression, Parker, is something you make with work, not with." He glanced at his chest. "Latte." She didn't respond. He simply walked over to the desk, picked up a folder, and set it down in front of her. "Work for today. At typing in, at serving coffee too, when the floor isn't conspiring against me." For a second she could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth threaten to smile, but it was gone just as quickly. "You can go. And, Parker," he called out as she was already at the door, "don't spill anything else on me." "All right," she replied before leaving. As she closed the door, Riley knew 2 things. First, she wasn't going to make things easy for that man. Second, he wasn't going to make things easy for her either. Riley arrived on the second day determined to prove that the coffee incident had been nothing more than a rough start. Little did she know that Maxwell Crawford had spent the entire night crafting a strategy any war general would be proud of. At 8:15 sharp, the phone on her desk rang. "Parker, my office now." His voice came over the intercom with the chill of an iceberg. She sighed, straightened her blouse, and walked down the hall, noticing the way employees watched her with a mix of curiosity and pity. It was as if they were watching someone walk to their own funeral. "Sit," Maxwell ordered without looking up from a document that seemed more important than world peace. Riley sat down, hands folded in her lap, waiting for the verdict. "I have a few tasks for you," he began, finally lifting his gaze with a smile that never reached his eyes. "First, I need you to organize all the financial department's files alphabetically, then by date, then by relevance. Deadline noon." Riley blinked. "Mr. Crawford, there are over 1,000 documents." "Your problem," he cut in, pretending to read again. "Oh, and I need a detailed report on the third floor employees' productivity for today as well. Today 5 o'clock. And I need," he paused dramatically, clearly savoring the moment, "one silver paper clip." "Just one." Riley frowned. "A silver paper clip. Exactly. Not gold, not white, not chrome. Silver for an extremely important presentation." She stayed, left his office with an expression somewhere between disbelief and determination. In the elevator, she muttered to herself, "You want war, you'll get war." 2 hours later, Maxwell was arriving at his office when he heard a strange noise coming from inside. Something metallic, like someone pouring coins. Curious, he quickly opened the door. Riley stood in front of his desk, smiling like a cat that had just discovered where the fish was hidden. Maxwell's desk was completely covered in silver paper clips. Thousands of them scattered. "Lick a cup of coffee." "No need to thank me." Maxwell froze in the doorway, speechless. In the middle of the desk, among the paper clips, was a handwritten note. "Hope one of these works for your extremely important presentation." "Parker, what is this?" "The silver paperclip you asked for?" she replied, keeping her sarcastic smile. A few employees began to gather discreetly in front of the glass wall, whispering excitedly. Maxwell looked at the desk, then at Riley, then back at the desk. Something between irritation and disbelief crossed his face. "How did you get so many silver paper clips?" "I borrowed them from a few offices in the building." Everyone was more than happy to help when they heard it was for Maxwell Crawford in the productivity report. Riley pulled a folder from under her arm and set it down on the only uncluttered corner of the desk. "Done with colorful charts and everything. Turns out the third floor is 23% more productive when they have access to good coffee and background music." "Interesting find." Maxwell flipped through the folder quickly and, to his own surprise, found it impeccably organized and detailed. And the financial files sorted alphabetically, chronologically, and by relevance. It was too easy, so I also added categories by cover color and by document thickness. You never know when that might come in handy. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of paper clips sliding off the desk when checking her watch. "By the way, I brought sandwiches for the team. They're in the kitchen in case anyone's interested." An excited murmur spread among the curious employees. Maxwell took a deep breath, clearly recalculating his strategy. "Tomorrow I want my desk clean and coffee." Regular silver paper clips were completely out of his control. The next morning, Maxwell walked into the office expecting to find a spotless desk and a steaming cup of coffee waiting for him. Instead, he found a tray of donuts arranged like a piece of art. They weren't ordinary donuts. The icing on each one formed a letter, and together they spelled out a message. "Leaders inspire, bosses sour." Maxwell stood there staring at the sugary masterpiece. When Riley appeared at the door, "Good morning. I thought you could use a little sugar to sweeten your mood." "Parker, the donuts are from a French bakery, Gourmet. I figured they'd suit your refined taste." Maxwell picked up one of the donuts, noting the perfection of the icing. "You decorated these?" Spent 2 hours at the bakery teaching the baker. He said he'd never made donuts with motivational messages before. Motivational. It's a modern leadership technique. Inspirational. Sweets. I read about it in an article from the Harvard Business Review. Maxwell took a bite, and even though he tried to keep a straight face, he had to admit it was delicious. And the coffee? Oh, I thought you were doing a caffeine detox. I read somewhere that executives are adopting healthier habits. She left the room, leaving Maxwell annoyed, alone with his philosophical donuts and his decaf coffee. Downstairs, at reception, things were unusually lively. Employees were gathered in small groups, whispering excitedly. James, the security guard, had set up a betting board where people could guess the exact day Riley would be fired. "I'm betting on Friday," said Sandra from it. "No one can last 5 days making Crawford look like a fool." "I don't know," murmured Ton from marketing. "She seems to be having fun, and honestly, so does he." "What do you mean? You didn't notice? Yesterday he laughed when she walked out with the paper clips. I saw it through. He smiles when he's firing someone." James, watching from his post, added another bet to the board. Monday, Sandra from it. But what no one noticed was Maxwell standing upstairs watching the scene through the security cameras. And what absolutely no one saw was the genuine smile he hid behind his hand as he bit into his second donut of the morning. The war had officially begun, and for the first time in years, Maxwell Crawford was having fun at work. Later, the boardroom on the 30th floor of Crawford Enterprises had never felt so tense. 5 major investors, the kind who decide a company's fate over breakfast, were seated around the mahogany table, while Maxwell adjusted his tie for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. His suit was flawless as always. Every crease was sharp, every button polished to perfection. The "I know everything" aura he had cultivated over the years was firmly in place, like an invisible suit of armor. "Gentlemen," Maxwell began, clicking the remote to start the presentation. "Last quarter's numbers show a 15% growth across all strategic areas." Thomas Hartwell, a gay-haired investor with gold-rimmed glasses, flipped through some papers with a focused expression. Next to him, Margaret Chen took notes on a tablet while the other 3 men studied the screen with professional attention. "Impressive," Crawford, Hartwell said. "These results, reserved for guaranteed victories. Efficiency is our trademark. Every team member is carefully chosen to maximize productivity." At that moment, the door opened and Riley walked in carrying a tray of coffee and wearing an apologetic expression. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, placing cups in front of each investor with the grace of someone who had practiced the motion 1,000. "Here. Not during a meeting this important. This is our new secretary," he said in a tone that managed to be both an introduction and a dismissal. "She's still adapting to our questionable efficiency standards." Riley paused mid-motion while handing coffee to Margaret Chen. For a moment, the silence in the room was heavier than